Good day, everybody. My name is Brad Steele, and I'm the Senior Director of Unified Communications for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And in this particular instance here, I am acting as a past president of NASTD. NASTD is the National Association of State Technology Directors, and it is made up of technology professionals serving state government. It is a member-driven organization whose purpose is to advance and promote the effective use of information technology and services to improve operation of state government. Part of our Constitution says we should engage in programs for the training, education, and development of technology professionals from all areas of state government. Since I was president, we decided that we would put together a set of educational videos that we call IT 101s to help with this education. We ask industry leaders 10 standard questions about technology or services in question. And if you haven't seen the videos that we put together in the past, I ask that you refer to the NASTD website, nastd.org, for a link to our YouTube channel where you can find all the rest of the videos. I ask that you please like and subscribe once you're on the YouTube channel. So our topic for today is it's not necessarily a technology, but more of an idea, and it is really automating the constituent experience. And that I know that's critical for all of our state employees that are probably watching here. And our subject matter expert for this topic is Craig Gironda from Vertical. Craig recently joined Vertical Communications after 5 years at Ring Central, leading the global customer experience solution engineering team and the North American field UCAS SE team. Prior to Ring Central, Craig was at ShoreTel for over 10 years as the leader of their global SE team. Craig is an experienced solution engineer and customer success leader who focuses on designing, implementing, measuring, and evoking customer experience. Craig is an avid golfer who had his first hole-in-one in May. So that is kind of an interesting fact. So I actually grew up on a golf course and I've never had a hole-in-one. So welcome, Craig.
Thanks, Brad. I'm glad to be here.
Where was your hole-in-one?
It was at our local course in Norwalk, Connecticut, Oak Hills.
Nice. And did you buy the drinks in the clubhouse afterwards?
No.
Smart. Smart. All right. So back to the topic at hand, though. Constituent experience. Tell us what that is, and what is a constituent experience environment?
The constituent experience for the purpose of this conversation today is how do we work with our constituents in the areas that they need to interact with us. Now, today, most of that is done via the human-to-human relationship. And with constituent experience, what we don't want to do is we don't want to replace humans everywhere. We want to augment them or supplement them. And we want to give people the ability to communicate in any method, in any mode that they'd like to communicate. So with creating a constituent experience environment, it's really a full set of tools, whether they're UCAS tools or contact center CCAS tools, or even the CPaaS tools that are available from many companies such as Twilio. It's your ability to really design an environment that you want your constituents to be able to have access to. And it's typically a lot of AI-based self-service automation as that next frontier, right? Whether it's digital or voice. And when we say constituents, yes, it could be the citizens of the town or the state, but it's also the people at work for the government, right? Because having disparate sources of information or conflicting answers doesn't do anything to build trust. So we leverage these AI tools, GPT and large language models, and we can build that environment to be reactive or proactive. It can be an inbound interaction or it could be outbound. And since we're designing these environments, it's a pretty much a blank palette and a blank slate. So what do we really want? For example, right now we're working on a project and we're creating a virtual city hall. So we're emulating all of the departments in the city hall, and each department has their own needs for automating some of the self-service. So it could be getting hours of operation, could be checking the date that your taxes are due or your account balance for taxes, because we're dealing with everyone in the environment. Some people don't have access to computer. Some people don't have access to smartphone. So we want to extend the services and be, very much focused on equity throughout the population. Now, the other component to that is, it's real-time information. So we're connecting to some database or integrating to some applications that have database. So we can really do a great job getting people the information or answers that they need.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. So what are some of the things that we can automate, and what would the benefits of that automation be?
Well, some of the things that we can benefit, automate, you get a lot of questions that are repetitive or mundane. So how can we offload that off of the staff? And it might be due dates. It might be, how do I get my beach pass? It might be, what are the hours of the local refuse dump? I know whenever there's a holiday, my collections. I don't know if they're coming. Are they coming? They normally come on a Friday, or this time are they coming on Saturday? Is it one of the holidays? So there's so many things that you can automate. And remember, we're putting in, let's call it, for the sake of this conversation, a virtual assistant. And it's an intelligent virtual assistant or an intelligent constituent assistant. So they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. Right? They're always there. They're in the cloud. And when you look at some of the other things you can automate inbound and outbound. So that proactive, reactive again. So do I want to, if I have health services, do I want to do automated reminders about appointments or flu shots or anything? It's it's endless, really, what you can do. And it really has that benefit of reducing staffing needs, because when I can take those mundane tasks away from the staff, they can spend more time on the higher value interactions. And that generally raises constituent experience ratings. One of the interesting facts I found researching some of the projects we've been doing is that 61%, I found this information in online in the one of the NASTD emails I got. 61% of constituents don't think their government offers reliable sources of trustworthy information. So this is that's a stunning number, right? So this is another way of providing your constituents with accuracy and consistency of information. And when you tie the constituent model together, the citizens and the employees, the staff together, and they have access to the same information, consistency and accuracy is going to go up. And then trust is going to go up. So the benefits are really great. So you're going to have a staff that's happier, you're going to have constituents that are happier, and you're going to have a financial ROI that's really, really quick, because these virtual agents don't cost nearly as much as hiring somebody that's in a human role, a human for that role, and they don't get sick, they don't take breaks, right? They're going to provide whatever you design very consistently and very targeted
and reliably. And I know that
yes,
the biggest thing is, we're having, we discussed this at NASTD at length and at the digital summits and those things, is hiring is, at this point is near impossible for a lot of positions at the state. So, anything we can do to make the existing workforce more efficient and more content, the better off we'll be.
That's a great point. We also find that training, right, is a huge factor. And once you build the intelligent constituent agents, they learn. We're now using GPT and LLM. Boy, it's amazing how much easier they are to build today than they were just 18 months ago.
Right. So I've got a blank slate, as you said earlier. How do we go about automating the constituent experience?
Well, I think the first thing is to find a consultative strategic partner, someone who you can have conversations with. And it might be partners. You might want to get different perspectives on how to do it. The second thing that I found is people typically start too large. Start very small. Let's do something very simple. And when you get a lot of cooks in the kitchen, the ideas start to flow. You can really create a scope of work that will be daunting. Because what you want to try to achieve is have early success. Because once you get that early success, you will be able to then continue to expand. So define the outcomes you want by starting small. That's when we start to get into data sources, applications to integrate into, what are the security challenges and requirements that you might have, painting that full picture. So, you've got, it's like a triangle. At the top of the triangle, you have the technology. And at the bottom left of the triangle, you have the operational and customer constituent experience needs. And then at the bottom right is the unknown, right? The more you can define that's clear, and the smaller you can make that list of unknowns, the higher the probability that you're going to have success. So you really want to find that partner that's going to be able to work with you through that, to keep that defined. And I call it DIME, DIME, design, implement, measure, evolve. That's the process.
And repeat, and repeat.
And rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. That's exactly right. And
say
that's
that
how
again.
we learn.
What's time? What's time again?
Design, implement, measure, and evolve.
Excellent. I like it. All right. So if I'm looking at this, what within our environment today does, putting this automation in place, what does it augment? What does it replace? What does it improve?
Well, the first thing is people. It can augment people or replace people. One of the key factors that we have found is in designing these intelligent environments, these constituent experience environments, it makes a tremendous amount of sense to give people the option of escalating to a live person. So you don't necessarily replace people, but you're certainly going to supplement them or augment them. Second thing is time. You're giving time back to people. I don't have to wait in queue as a constituent calling in or texting in. I don't have to worry about, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. The worst thing, I just got my local cable bill and it's wrong. Well, I want to call up 8 o'clock. They're open at 8 o'clock in the morning. You get put into a queue and now you're waiting on hold. They might offer you some callback service. And of course, they call back when you're on another call, or they call back with an unknown caller ID, and you don't know if you want to answer the call, right? So that time element is priceless to people. What it also augments is, traditionally, we might have an auto attendant or an IVR. Well, these are intelligent IVRs. These are super intelligent auto attendants. And you don't have to replace everything. I've done projects where I've taken this constituent environment and in a hybrid model, put it in front of an existing telephone system. So now we have created intelligent routing, and leveraged how people can find the right resource within City Hall, for example, and not have to go through an auto attendant tree or know who they're actually trying to call. They can ask questions and have their questions answered, or they can be routed intelligently based on, now you can also route based on their identity. So we're smart enough to be able to look up the identity and determine, oh, this person's delinquent in their taxes. Let's route them over here. Or this person is eligible for some program assistance. Oh, let's let them know. Let's make an announcement and say, hey, did you know you're a senior and we have this new program for seniors? It's virtually limitless on what we can do. You can get rid of emails because you can send through the manual emails. You can send an automated email if you wanted to, or text, SMS. We even do things with PCI compliance for payments. So would you like to automate payments and let people pay through voice? And we have some of the solutions that we offer have voice biometrics. So if you wanted to offer that, you could offer voice biometrics to your constituents where they could set up their account, and when they call in, they would verify by saying a phrase. This is helpful for some people. It's not helpful for others, but it's a potential. Surveys. Do you want to do surveys? And all around, I think the core element that we find is when we understand the outcomes, we want to define the meaningful measurements that people want to look at. And that's how you can really architect the interaction and the workflow, because you want to be able to extract those metrics, right? And some of those metrics are, most of those metrics are going to be performance-based, time-based, but you also like to look at the telemetry coming back. Do you have your routing correct, right? Did you make people jump to too many hoops, right? Is it too, you don't want complication. You want to keep it as simple as possible. And that's why I like to call it kind of the intelligent constituent assistant, because people want to get to the answer as fast as possible.
I know that I've heard of some IVR systems that can actually detect when someone's getting annoyed and automatically route them to a person, when they start swearing and yelling and screaming.
Yeah, so sentiment analysis.
Speaking of calling your cable company, by the way, I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah, yes. Sentiment analysis has now become, because AI is embedded virtually in every element of UCAS and CCAS, depending on the provider. Sentiment analysis is something that is no longer just limited to an agent in a contact center on a phone call, right? So you can do sentiment analysis on voice, on text. You can do sentiment analysis on through emails, and it's very valuable. And some systems extend it all the way through where you can turn it on for any user in the system. It's very, very helpful if you have people actually measuring it, right, and looking at it.
Yes. Yeah. So I've made the decision. I want to start automating stuff. So what do I need to consider before I get started? And how do we start the process?
I think the first thing is who you want to bring into the process, and the key stakeholders. And once you have a small group of people, to clearly define why you're doing it. If you don't understand why you're doing it, you're probably not going to hit the target.
Okay.
And once you understand why you're doing it and the motivation behind it, then it's defining the outcomes and keeping that very, very simple. If once you keep that simple, and you'll be able to know, okay, this is why I'm doing it. Here's who I'm going to be working with. This is what I like to achieve, because you need to know the audience, right? And if you know the audience and keep that small and tight, you're going to really, really be able to define the functionality that you want, and make it work to a T. And of course, knowing what you want to measure. And the other factor I'll say before you start is, how are you going to measure success?
Okay.
This is often overlooked. Success could be measured in many ways. It could be financial. It could be customer satisfaction slash constituent satisfaction, employee satisfaction as a constituent. It's something that I think many people overlook, and that's part of the dime, right? In the measure, figure out what you want to measure there, and once you have that set, now you have a really good roadmap to success. And working with a consultative strategic partner or a service provider at that point, it really becomes fairly straightforward to design, implement, measure, and evolve.
Excellent. So, what limitations are there? I mean, it sounds like it's limitless in the technology, but there must be some limits to what we can do.
Oh yeah, there like any technology, this continues to evolve, and every month I see new features coming out. So I would say that let your imagination run wild, but only in a very narrow scope of what you're trying to achieve at first. The limitations are for some people. The limitations are the databases and in applications you can integrate to. The accuracy of the information that you're integrating to, right? Who's going to maintain that information because the information changes? This is not a set it and forget it type of thing because the data sources are going to continually evolve, right? The information in the databases are typically not static information sources, right? So that's a big thing, is to get into the mindset. Somebody has to be responsible and accountable for that. So that's typically the biggest area that we see of limitations is what access do we have and what accuracy and who's maintaining.
Okay. So again, I've made the decision. I'm going to automate. Here I go. What's the cost model? How do I go about paying for it? How do I plan for paying for it, both short term and long term?
That is, it's almost a story that's too good to be true. So there are typically two types of interactions: digital interaction, texting, for example, or voice interactions, intelligent speech. So they can be done individually. Some systems actually replicate both. So when I build a voice interaction, it builds the text interaction at the same time. It's a separate workflow. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing. Do you want digital, voice, or both? Then there are two payment models for it. One is the number of virtual agents. So think of it kind of as how many simultaneous interactions do you want? If I have 10 callers coming in, I would have to license at least 10 virtual agents simultaneously. Mm-hmm. But that model is getting older and older by the day, and it's typically now the number of interactions that you have. So you buy a bundle of interactions, kind of like the old days of buying a bundle of minutes. You buy a bundle of interactions, they have a very low pennies per interaction cost, and an interaction is typically defined as a call or a chat that has up to 50 responses in one session. So they're pretty lenient. And most of the companies are allowing those to roll over. So if you don't use all your interactions in 1 month, they roll over to your new pool of interactions in another month. So that's typically how you're getting charged. Now, there are other factors that might come into play. For example, if you're taking credit card transactions, mm-hmm. then you want to put a PCI compliant solution in place, and there are costs involved with any of the software-based PCI compliant solutions like PCI PAL or Secure Pay, and that might add some transaction costs in there above and beyond the processing fees for the credit card processing. But it's really just paying as you go on demand, and very relatively low since you're buying pools of interactions.
So I would assume that there's probably a upfront configuration charge as well,
Yes,
to discovery and that.
that absolutely is. We most of the strategic partners don't charge for the discovery, but they do charge for the project implementation. And because these are cloud services, you're paying your usage or your interactions, and there are other factors that can come into play on the support side. So you might buy a enterprise support if you wanted 24/7 support instead of the standard SLAs that come with the service providers. And you also might want a technical account manager to be assigned if you're really getting into very large and detailed customer, I'm sorry, constituent experience environments that you want to have that extra TLC from the service provider.
Okay.
But that's really the other part of it, right? Are you going directly to a service provider, or are you going to a strategic consultative partner? The difference being service providers are going to fit you into their solution. A strategic partner is going to offer a myriad of different solutions and work with you to determine which best fits your needs. And then that model diverges a little differently also. In some cases, that strategic partner is really just an agent referring the service providers. And in some models, they're actually the quote unquote reseller, meaning that they do the implementation, they do support, they do billing. You're not getting billed from a service provider.
Right. Okay.
And the costs there are typically the ROI model that we're seeing, how to pay for it. Typically, because of the high cost of human labor, we're seeing ROIs in the 3 to 4 month range,
Wow.
which is very, very quick turnaround.
Yeah, and again, for states, it's maybe not necessarily ROI in the fashion that a retail or a private sector entity might see, but it is, like you said earlier, that kind of human capital, human contentness. Instead of having 10 employees running around with their hair on fire, giving 80% answers because they don't have time. Now you have those 10 really solving problems, giving that white glove treatment. So
Absolutely.
I definitely need to factor that in as well. So I have to ask, or else my CISO friends would get mad at me. What security concerns should I have when going through this process?
Well, there's always security concerns, right? The underlying concerns are always based around security, and the security around the technology. Well, the cloud providers are doing a tremendous job with the security around the technology. Every provider we have, whether has their security onion that they'll have in place and be able to provide documentation for you on, and that goes from every element of every service provider I've run into. Then there's the security of the strategic partner you're working with to make sure that their policies and how they're handling data and security are really consistent and thorough in how they're doing it. And then the people having access to it, because you're giving people inside of the city, you're going to give them access to data sources and applications that they have to be really thorough about the access, the passwords, their policies and procedures for handling it, for discussing. There could be HIPAA compliance issues and health services. There's so many different things to identify, and that's really part of a good design, is to understand where all of those breakpoints are and identify them and make sure that the policies and procedures that your vendors have are going to match and meet your needs of your policies and procedures.
Excellent. Well, I think I told you in advance that this was going to be relatively painless. So we've come to our final question, which I ask everybody. What else do we need to know? What did I forget to ask you?
Well, the people that are most often left out in these conversations are the constituents.
Okay.
So I like to say that really having conversations, not just putting a survey out, but actually having conversations with people is where you get the best feedback and the best advice.
Okay.
Right? A number on a survey doesn't give you the full story. So talk to people. Where are they feeling underserved? Where are they feeling frustrated? And they'll be your guide. And working with the constituents inside the government, working with your constituents from your town or city or state, get that feedback and incorporate that into your why. The other thing is, it's not set it and forget it, right? This is an evolving, ongoing, living entity you're going to be putting into place. It's a virtual assistant, but it has to be a really accurate and targeted application that you're putting into place. So somebody has to be responsible and accountable for making sure that it stays up to date and it's meeting the needs. The funny thing is, you can do your own surveys with it, right? So it's kind of, if you put somebody in charge and you set the right parameters and give them the right guidance, the tools are there for doing that. And lastly, I think, how do you implement change? Right? There's so many different ways to bring technology in, and in many cases, people are afraid of that change. So it's really getting, I like to call it from, take something from a leadership guru out there, John C. Maxwell. He says, how do we get it from me to we? So when we are implementing this change, starting with that why with the employees, with the staff, getting them on board, why this is great for the constituents, for the outside and the citizens, for the constituents, the employees, makes a huge difference, because they will be your best source of changing that culture from needing to pick up the phone and talk to a live person to letting people know there's better ways to communicate and better ways to get what you need.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I always say this, but I hope everybody that watches this gets as much out of it as I did. I know that I work in this field, director of UC. I have, the call centers for the Commonwealth that are reporting, that I'm responsible for, and I'm learning stuff. So hopefully this is beneficial to everybody that's listening as much as it is for me. So again, Craig Gironda from Vertical, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for the folks who are watching. And again, if you're watching this, please like, subscribe, all those good things that social media people ask you to do. It just helps us know who's watching and get the satisfaction rating that we were just talking about here. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next IT 101.
Thanks, Brad.